Welcome to the deep dive. We've pulled together a truly massive stack of sources for you today.
We really have.
And on the surface, they all seem to describe what feels like a single, a purely local weather crisis just hitting the UK.
But it's so much more than that. The sources we have, they range from the minute-by-minute updates from the UK Met Office right through to some really deep analysis of hemisphere-wide changes.
Exactly. And that's our mission today, to take that immediate bitter cold that you might be feeling right now and zoom all the way out.
To connect it to what meteorologists are calling the Great Eurasian Weather Divergence.
It's about understanding not just what is causing the frost on the ground, but why this particular event matters on a global scale.
It's an incredible story. So let's start with that immediate reality. What's facing the UK this weekend?
Okay, so right now, the UK is absolutely locked into an Arctic blast. The simple cause is frigid air just being dragged right across us by these sustained strong northerly winds.
And that's keeping temperatures well below average, pretty much everywhere.
The immediate impact, then, is the warnings. Right. The Met Office has got them active.
They're active and they're being updated constantly, right through Monday and, potentially into Tuesday.
And these are yellow warnings, for the most part, for ice and snow.
Yellow warnings are across the board, yes, but they escalate pretty seriously. Up in northern and eastern Scotland, they're amber.
And amber means a much higher risk of disruption.
A very high risk. Disruption to transport is the key phrase in the sources. So for anyone listening, checking your journey before you travel is, it's absolutely essential.
And the temperatures themselves are, for the UK anyway, genuinely brutal. We're talking widespread hard frost.
Overnight temperatures are widely dropping to -2, maybe -5 Celsius. But locally, it gets much worse.
Especially where there's snow on the ground in the countryside.
Exactly. And those spots, you could see it plummeting to -7, or even -10 degrees.
-10. That's a properly dangerous frost. And during the day, many places won't even get above freezing.
Especially in Scotland, yes. And that biting wind is key because it feels like temperature is, as the source says, well below freezing for all of us.
Yeah.
The cold is just completely locked in.
What's really interesting, though, is the duality of the snowfall. Where you are in the UK completely changes the weather you're getting.
It really does. There's a clear geographical split.
So if you're in northern Scotland, you are getting the absolute worst of it. Heavy snow, blizzards, drifting.
And accumulations of up to 40 centimeters on high ground, that's where those amber warnings are really focused.
But it's also the coasts that are getting hit hard, which seems a bit counterintuitive. You got sleet and snow showers coming in off the sea.
Yes, sweeping into Northern Ireland, western parts of Wales, the West Country, but also, crucially, down the East Coast.
Because of the wind direction.
That's right. These intense, heavy showers are just piling in directly off the North Sea. We're seeing reports of snow on the beaches and coastal towns.
These aren't just light flurries, are they?
No, not at all. The sources say coastal towns could see significant snowfall. One of these heavy streamers can dump a couple of centimeters in just 10 or 20 minutes.
But then, if you're inland, say driving down the central spine of the country,
it's a totally different world. Plenty of crisp winter sunshine. But you're still dealing with that raw, biting wind.
So the edges of the UK are fighting blizzards, while the center is dry and bitterly cold.
And that's our cue to pivot. Because this isn't just a cold front. This is being driven by something structural happening 30 kilometers above our heads.
So we need to look way, way up. The sources call it a structural fracture in the entire northern hemisphere's atmospheric circulation. What on earth is that?
We have to zoom right out to the engine room, which is the stratospheric polar vortex.
Okay, so this is way up, a spinning mass of super cold air over the pole.
Think of it like a rapidly spinning top. It normally acts like a strong, solid lid, keeping all that frigid Arctic air tightly boxed in.
And the sources suggest that lid has just shattered.
Precisely. A massive structural collapse of that vortex. And it's triggered by something called a sudden stratospheric warming, an SSW.
Right.
This SSW causes a total wind reversal, 30 kilometers up. The containment just breaks apart, and all that frigid polar air has nowhere to go but down and out.
Spilling southwards into our latitudes.
Exactly. But that's just the first domino. For the UK to get hit this hard, other things need to align perfectly.
It's like a chain reaction.
A perfect alignment. The next player is something called the negative Arctic oscillation, or AO.
Can you just quickly unpack what the AO is?
Sure. It's basically a pressure system around the Arctic. When it's strongly positive, the jet stream is tight and fast and it locks the cold away.
But when it goes negative?
When it turns strongly negative, that pressure shield weakens. The jet stream gets slack and wavy.
Yeah.
The sources call this a green light for the cold air to just get pushed deep southward right into the UK and Europe.
So that's the steering mechanism. But there's a third piece, isn't there? The QBO.
The quasi-biennial oscillation. Yes. This is the subtle bit. It's a tropical wind pattern, but when it's strongly negative, which it is right now,
That's the trigger.
it acts as the perfect trigger condition for the SSW to happen in the first place. So you've got the trigger, the collapse, and then the steering mechanism. All the dominoes falling to just, as the source says, flood Eurasia with polar air.
And where does this kind of volatility, this deep push of cold, fit into the, the wider climate story?
It's a direct symptom of Arctic amplification. The Arctic is warming about 4 times faster than the rest of the planet,
And that weakens the temperature difference between the pole and the equator.
which in turn weakens the jet stream, making it more prone to these huge, wavy, meandering paths.
So that wavier path is exactly what allows this deeply frigid air to plunge so far south. It creates these massive, slow-moving extremes.
Exactly. The system is more fragile, it's more prone to this kind of collapse. It's the paradox of a warming world. You get these extreme cold snaps happening much further south than they used to.
Which brings us back to the UK forecast for this week. Because this whole structure creates a real knife-edge scenario, doesn't it? The Atlantic is trying to fight back.
It is. You have this locked-in, solid, cold air and milder, moister air from the Atlantic trying to push in from the west. It's a collision zone.
And when that milder Atlantic system bumps into this entrenched cold,
That's when you get these highly volatile, marginal conditions. The forecasters are genuinely struggling to pinpoint the precipitation type. Will it be rain, sleet, or will it be heavy snow?
and the difference is just a single degree, or even less.
It is. We're seeing all the big models, the UKV, ICON, GFS, tracking a low pressure system for Tuesday into Wednesday.
Which could bring heavy frontal snow.
It could, but it's on a knife edge, especially for southern England. A shift of just 1 or 2 degrees in the dew point could be the difference between, say, 5 to 10 centimeters of disruptive snow and just 1 or 2 centimeters of slush. The uncertainty is huge.
Now, there's a really crucial immediate danger that we need to talk about, the refreezing hazard.
This is probably the biggest safety concern for the next few days. During the day, if you get some of that winter sun, temperatures might just creep up a bit, maybe to 4 degrees Celsius.
Causing a bit of a thaw on roads and pavements.
Right, and a lot of people might think, oh great, it's ending, but that's actually when the hazard gets much, much worse.
Because all that meltwater is going to freeze again as soon as the sun goes down.
And it will refreeze very quickly. In about half an hour to an hour, it turns into that treacherous black ice. The sources are so clear on this, it makes conditions even worse and far more dangerous than before.
So even if we see a bit of sun, the long-term outlook is still just bitter.
Absolutely. The cold is expected to remain bitterly cold, with freezing surfaces right through the middle of the month, maybe until the 13th or 15th of January.
We're locked in for another week or two then.
At least.
So let's connect this back to the really big picture. The UK shivering is just one side of this Eurasian divergence.
It is. The collapse of the vortex creates this state of extreme duality across the whole hemisphere.
So at the exact same time, we're getting this savage Arctic blast.
The same sagging jet stream is creating high-energy storms and flash floods that are smashing into the Mediterranean and southern regions. 2 opposite extremes from the same atmospheric fracture.
But the real core of the cold is much further east, isn't it? The numbers coming out of Siberia are just hard to get your head around.
It's on a completely different magnitude. While we're worrying about -10, they're forecasting temperatures to plunge below -60 degrees Celsius.
-60.
The cold is so extreme, the sources are reporting a really bizarre side effect.
What's that?
This deep freeze is expected to terminate agricultural pests. One source actually calls it a natural Siberian disinfection.
A strange silver lining in what must be a massive crisis.
It is a crisis
Yeah.
because that sudden violent freeze is an immediate and intense stress test for critical infrastructure right across Eurasia.
Right, like the permafrost issue. 70% of Russia's Arctic energy infrastructure is built on ground that's already thawing.
And now that thawing ground gets hit with a sudden, violent, multi-week deep freeze. It's a massive thermal shock.
Right.
It causes uneven contraction, expansion.
Stressing the foundations of pipelines, power stations?
Instantly. And that natural strain is being compounded by the geopolitical situation.
The sources mention retaliatory strikes targeting power infrastructure.
That's right. They cite a 750 kilovolt substation being disabled. When you layer these human-caused failures on top of the worst cold snap in decades, you see Moscow declaring a national emergency in some areas. The whole system is vulnerable.
And the logistical choke points are just immediate.
The economic impact is stunning, yes.
Yeah.
In Georgia, temperatures have dropped to -17. The Georgian military road, which is the only land route connecting Russia with Georgia and Armenia, is completely closed.
So everything just stops.
Everything. The sources we looked at report over 1,200 trucks are just queued up at the border, paralyzed by the weather. Commerce just grinds to a halt.
This has been an extraordinary deep dive. We've gone from snow on UK beaches all the way up to the collapse of a stratospheric vortex, and then follow that instability right across to Siberia.
It's one single weather event, driven by that perfect alignment of three atmospheric forces, the SSW, the AO, and the QBO.
Creating two completely opposite violent extremes at the same time.
And it all makes sense in that wider climate context. The Sources project this year will hit a global temperature anomaly of plus 1.46 degrees. The warmth is creating the instability.
So given everything we've discussed, -60 in the north, flash floods in the south, it leaves you, the listener, with a pretty important question to consider.
As these violent swings become the new normal because of this Arctic amplification.
Is our critical infrastructure, from our UK power grids dealing with intense ice to those logistics networks resting on that vulnerable permafrost?
Is any of it fundamentally designed to withstand both intense ice loading and catastrophic flash floods simultaneously?
That kind of dual extreme volatility is the defining stress test of our era. And the sources suggest it demands an immediate reevaluation of how we design, well, everything.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
Stay warm and stay informed.